You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Have you heard? Did you hear? Have you heard? I thought everyone had heard. No, we're not going to do that. No way. We're not going there. But where we will go is to Sinusoid. For all our cabling needs. You got a guitar rig, you got instrument cables, you got a pedal board, you got things that need connected. You need to go to Sinusoid. And if you're looking for a top quality instrument cable, you need to check out the Sinusoid Slate. That is their very own proprietary, I shouldn't be saying, I have no business saying that word. I'm not going to say it. Proprietary. Okay, forget it. They've got a great cable, okay? They've designed everything from the amount of capacitance it has to the type of jacket material it has, so the way it slides on stage, the way it feels in your hand, everything about the Slate they designed in-house and is exclusive to them. So go to sinusoid.com and check out the Slate if you want one of the best instrument cables backed by one of the best warranties in the business. 100 years. They will hook you up. Yes, Sinusoid. They're the best. And if you don't know, time to get familiar. Go to sinusoid.com. You know what else? I want to talk about something else in this section right here. I want to talk to you about the Tone Mob Patreon. I usually save this plug for the end of the episodes, but since I haven't done one at the beginning, I decided to mix it together. We're going to mix it with another plug right now. So, Tone Mob Patreon, what's that about? Well, you can go there, and it's a place where you can get extra episodes. If you have not heard on these last few episodes, we've kind of plugged it, told you where to go. No, I did it again. Patreon.com/ToneMob. We're doing things a little backwards this time. Patreon.com/ToneMob. You can go there, you can see all the various levels that are available and the different rewards that come with signing up for each level. And at the $5 level is kind of the magic level. That's where you get extra episodes. And what do those extra episodes encompass, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm really glad. We've got a wide range of things there. A lot of them are me and my good friend Justin Porter. We're there shooting the breeze in the shred shed, talking about gear, talking about food, talking about all the normal stuff you would expect Tone Mob people to be talking about, because it's kind of what this show's all about. So you can get some of that. Also, there's additional, a little bit extended versions of the podcast. So we've got actually this podcast today with the folks from Strymon. We've got a few extra minutes. I think we got 10-15 minutes of extra episodes. It's actually on the shorter side. Next week, we'll have, I think, like an additional 45 minutes or more. It was long. I just got done recording it today, and it was long with the guys from Electro Foods, and we get into crazy things with robots and strange Japanese guitars and all kinds of stuff on there. So there's a lot of extra content on the Tone Mob Patreon feed if you are interested, including a really, really excellent additional cut, an add-on, if you will, to the episode with Sean Arbo from Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, they sponsored this episode. I mean, they make fantastic products. Sean's an awesome guy, and if you need anything done in your guitar wiring-wise, they're definitely the place to go. Hit up Gun Street Wiring Shop. You'll see what I'm talking about. They've got everything under the sun that you could think of. Sean can make it happen. But what I want to talk to you about is Sean's appearance on the Tone Mob Patreon was excellent. He really got into some more personal stuff that we didn't talk about on the regular feed episode that he did a while back, and it was really inspiring to me, honestly. The way he handled and has kind of mentally handled a very difficult situation was really inspiring. So you want to go check all that out. That is patreon.com/tonemob. At the $5 level, every week you get fresh extra Tone Mob content. And if you want the best wiring harnesses in the business, you go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Ethan and Pete from Strymon. How's it going, guys?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very good. Thanks.
I'm doing splendid. Doing this thing, that little awkward thing where we have to pretend like we weren't just talking and then we started recording.
Sure, we've never spoken.
Ever. But we haven't actually spoken that much. Actually, quite often I've had like several hour conversations with guests sometimes. So this is a little bit fresh for me. So it's it's all good.
Definitely.
But we'll just get started here with the kind of the basic question. This probably applies to Pete more so than Ethan, but I want to hear from you too. But this usually goes for quite a long time. So everybody knows Strymon. They're very well regarded in the industry, obviously. And I think it would be interesting to hear from Pete, like, what was kind of your musical backstory and how did that lead into where we are today?
Well, I started playing guitar as a young teenager, like many young teenagers do. And I always loved playing guitar, like right from the start of when I picked up a guitar. I knew it wasn't just going to be some sort of like, passing fad. And then as I was finishing high school and getting into college or applying for college, I was had to figure out what kind of major I wanted to be. And I was always good in math and science. And when I was looking at the names of the courses for electrical engineering, it had seen things like, active filter design and amplifier design. And they weren't specifically for guitar amplifiers or things like that. But I knew that the connection was, hey, this is the thing to learn about if you want to, be interested in doing things that are going to be related to music and, music electronics and things. So I ended up getting a degree in electrical engineering and kind of had I guess you'd say grown-up job for 3 years after I got out of college at Analog Devices, who are based in Massachusetts, but they're actually, when I started working there, it was actually in the mid 80s, and it was before the advent of the, DSP chip. But it turns out now that Analog Devices is the company that we're using our DSPs from, but that was kind of, far in the future at that point. So I worked there for 3 years and just kind of always had this, and that was back in Massachusetts. And then I had this, always this kind of bug in me that I would, head out to California someday, just to kind of, not with any sort of grand scheme of a plan, just to, head out and see what happened. So I actually did that, and I came out and went to Musicians Institute in Hollywood, which had the guitar program. It was a 12-month program, and I figured I'd just go there and, see what happens. I was, I guess wanted to explore the possibility of, would it be, any possibility that I'd be able to make a living as a guitar player in some fashion. And it was a great year, and I learned a lot. And what I learned was I wasn't going to make a living as a guitar player, but I was already in California, and it's like, oh, this is where a lot of the companies that do this stuff, this is where they're located. So, and again, this was before the internet, so I got my pen and paper and wrote some letters to some companies, and one of the companies was Alesis Electronics, which was in Culver City, and I started working for them in 1989. This was before the ADAT was in existence, and I think the new product was the Quadriverb had just come out. I don't know if these old products mean anything to you, but
oh yeah, they do, definitely. Yeah, it was legendary.
It was quite an exciting time, and that got me into this industry. So that was darn close to 30 years ago. So I've been, started working for them and then have been in the industry and, ever since then until, that's, got me, once you're in this industry, it's like, you don't want to go out of it, because then, especially having worked in kind of, other more serious industries, you realize it's kind of a unique combination of,
you don't have to wear pants, basically. You show up to work, and it's not a big deal.
The environment and the kind of, I guess, the whole attitude of the industry just, really suited me right from the start. So I'm still here, and now we're here.
Yep.
I know exactly what you mean. I recently have gotten to be full-time in the industry myself, and I'm like, what was I doing? This is so much better. So much better. Yeah. But so maybe you can clarify this for me, because I honestly am a little bit ignorant to it, although I have a Facebook group based around this podcast, and there were some people asking questions when I told them you guys were coming on the show. What's the, as much as you can tell me, I know there's certain things you can't talk about with certain topics, but what is the damage control Strymon? How did that kind of evolve? What's the story there?
Well, we started off as damage control back in 2004.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was Greg, Pete, and Dave essentially that started that out, and made some two base products, and they sold okay. There were a few things we learned from that experience, and some of it was, okay, we got to make these things a little bit smaller. We got to make them more efficient. While all that was going on, we're learning new things about DSP. So in 2008, we decided to basically kind of take a fresh start and rebrand Strymon, and that's when we decided to obviously release our. I think we started off with Obi-Wan and Blue Sky and Orbit, Ola, and El Capistan right around that time. It was a good opportunity to kind of take a look at what we had done in the past and really just kind of give it a fresh face. And since then, we started out with just a few people, and now there's quite a few people working here now that are all helping us get these products out into the world.
Cool. Now, I should have. I jumped ahead of probably where I should have. Why don't we go back a step and let you, Ethan, kind of tell your version of that story, and then we'll come back to what you were just talking about. That was my mistake.
My story was similar in a way where I started off. For me, it was kind of recording. I had a 4-track recorder back when I was in high school, and I used to record all these silly songs. I'd rush home from school, and I'd have a drum set. I'd have guitar, bass, and I would sing and just try to record as much as possible. And that was kind of before I could afford a Pro Tools rig, so it was all on cassette. But from there, I think after I graduated from high school, I went to college for music, and then I figured, okay, how am I going to actually turn this into something where I can make some money? I'm not like a great musician. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. I would call my instrument songwriting. That's kind of what I do. But I'm not like a great guitar player. I'm not a great singer. It's all about kind of crafting a song. So I came out to California figuring, okay, well, this is where a lot of this stuff is happening. And I quickly realized, same as Pete, that, you know what? I don't think I want to struggle. I don't think I want to be a struggling musician. I want to make music. But I want to be able to survive and pay my mortgage. So
right.
I ended up getting a job at Line 6, and I was there for a very long time, and I learned a lot about this industry and, product development and marketing. And I also realized that you don't need a degree to really kind of market these products. You just have to have a really good understanding of musicians and what people like to do and how you can inspire people. So I dropped out of college and never went back. And here we are a few years later at Strymon, and now it's kind of nice because I can still record music for work. If we have a new video or something like that coming out, I can record here and make songs and record guitar clips and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my path to where I am now.
So you guys have both been with it for, basically since the beginning, sounds like, or really close to it.
I joined the team right around 2010, right before we released El Capistan. But
Okay,
obviously,
gotcha.
yeah, Pete's been here. Maybe you were here like week 3 or something. Yeah.
Pretty much right from the start. Yeah.
Yep.
Right from the start. So was there Pete, you said you went to school for electronic engineering. Do you find that I through talking to a lot of people, seems to be guys that are very good in the analog realm and guys that strength more lies in the DSP. Strymon is mainly known for DSP based stuff. Was there much of a curve there for getting into that, or was it like a fairly easy transition or workaround for that?
Well, I had been exposed, like my background, from school in the early days, I was analog, but it was actually, working at Analog Devices. I was, they make semiconductors, so I was actually like involved in the teams that were doing the layout and the design on the transistor level of these chips. So when I started working for Alesis, it was a nice fit because they were doing their own custom. They were called ASICs, application specific ICs. It was very forward thinking. No one else in the industry that I knew of, certainly at that time, was doing that. Because again, this was before DSPs were actually, something that existed. You basically, you would have to get a whole bunch of logic chips to put these crazy systems together. That's why they were like on these huge circuit boards. But Alesis was actually doing their own design of custom integrated circuits. So that's what I did at Alesis, and I was working closely with Keith Barr, who is the owner of Alesis, and he was really, I guess, I don't use the term lightly, but I'd say he was a genius and a visionary in his own right, and just a great mentor. And one of the projects we were working on was making our own A to D and D to A converters, integrated circuits, and that in itself kind of entails some fairly involved signal processing to take. I won't go into the details, but it was actually, that was where I learned quite a bit about some of the concepts of signal processing, and it was a really an interesting way to do it, because as I was learning about it, I was actually designing these circuits on a you could think of a circuit board might have like 4 layers or so, where you've got some traces on the top and the bottom and some sandwiched in the middle. Well, an integrated circuit is like a 15 or 16 layer circuit board, and there's rules and things. So it all kind of came together along with the signal processing to give me a good foundation. And then I started working at Line 6 in 2000. And when I got there, they didn't have a specific project, but I had known the guys at Line 6 had worked closely with Alesis for a number of projects. So they knew me. And when I started working for them, they said, hey, we don't really have anything like exactly that, for you to do, other than we've got this idea of making a guitar that's kind of like our amplifiers, a guitar that can sound like other guitars. And they said, if you're interested, you can kind of just get started doing some research. And I said, sure, that sounds fun. And it was really just wide open. It was just like a blank piece of paper. They weren't telling me what to do or how to do it. So I had a kind of a lot of stuff to figure out, but also the resources of, the smart people that were also working there at Line 6. So, I learned, it basically, like I said, I started in this industry in 1989. So you can learn a lot by osmosis over the course of, a decades, or more. So along with the, good fundamental background in electronics that I got from college, which is still very important to kind of understand the basic concepts, from that level. I've just slowly absorbed over time and continue to absorb, new concepts and things. But so when we started damage control, the idea was, okay, let's use these analog devices, processors, and let's, if we write the code in C, it allows for very fast kind of prototyping, and it allows for a lot of creativity, because you could just almost at a high level, you just kind of put these ideas down in code and then listen to them directly in real time. So that was how it's kind of evolved slowly, but I didn't have to try to go from being an analog guy to just learning how to be a DSP guy. But then at the same time, we have Greg Stock, who's our analog guy, who is, I don't know if you're going to find a more accomplished analog guy in this industry than he is. And so along with our digital processing, which gets maybe a little more of the limelight of here's how things might be a little more glamorous to talk about creating the sound that way, but the signal to noise ratio and the signal path and fidelity and all that kind of stuff, that's where analog engineering comes in, and and Greg makes sure that we're kind of at the forefront in terms of that kind of performance as well.
Yeah, you certainly can't. You can have the greatest DSP processing in the world, but if the analog circuitry surrounding it makes it filtered and sound like garbage, then it's not really going to do any good. So
exactly correct. Yeah, yeah. They both have to be working right.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Was there, other than just the branding and all that stuff, was it a very conscious shift to go from the damage control vacuum tube type thought process, where now Strymon is obviously very known for its DSP, that's what is kind of praised about the company? Was that just we'll try this and see what happens, or did you guys kind of look ahead and go, yeah, this is where the industry's going, this is where we need to be the guys?
A little of both, but I mean, one of our damage control products, the last couple that we did, were the damage control timeline and the damage control glass nexus. Now, so the timeline was our big green delay, and it still had two vacuum tubes. One was a tube buffer on the input into the DSP, and then a tube buffer on the way out. But the actual processing inside, that was really the genesis for a lot of what has become Strymon. As we know it today, that product was really a great testing ground of the way that we kind of approach the whole DSP thing, and the way our workflow, and just the continued ideas that that we have developed. So it really is kind of an ongoing process. I think the more conscious thing was to say, look, the tubes are cool, and but the problems they present are, it requires a power supply that's not conventional. It adds weight. I don't know what the damage control pedals weighed. I don't know how many pounds they were, but they were big and they weighed a chunk. We occasionally we'd see people come in and they'd have one of our two preamps, and maybe we had a distortion. We had kind of a three series of pedals, and if someone had three of our pedals on their pedal board, it's like, wow, that's kind of a beast of a pedal board. And we at that point we realized that you really have to take into consideration space and weight, and just ease of mounting and power, support and those kind of things. So it was a continuation of what we'd been doing, along with some conscious efforts to say, let's really make these pedals that are going to really just be nice to put on your board and not create a different kind of problem for people.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I would say that's been well accomplished. I have a Deco, and I really like it. So I think that's I don't know if, you guys would know better than me, but I feel like that one doesn't get enough love. I think that's the coolest pedal. I love it.
That's a tough one, because I think for a lot of people, you have a set type of pedal that you're aware of and that you understand what they do. Okay, you know what a delay is, you know what a chorus is, you know what a overdrive is. But it was And I'll admit this was a tough one for us to market too, because we're trying to create sort of something that didn't really exist in pedal form before. And it does a lot of things, but it's a very unique thing that's kind of hard to explain in words. You sort of have to experience it. So yeah, I think it definitely was a challenge for us to get the word out, and maybe it is. I'd say it's probably a little bit underrated. But yeah, because you can get everything from tape flanging to tape chorusing to slapback echoes and delays and all the saturation and all the juicy goodness that goes along with tape.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the tricks that it can pull off are like you said, really unique. And I played one at NAMM and was basically like, oh, I'm buying one of these. Like this is like, I played all of them. I thought they were all good. But that one, for some reason, I just like, yeah, I got to get one of these when I get home.
Sweet.
This is my jam.
It's definitely one of those pedals that you kind of have to try it. I mean, I think it's because it can do a lot, and I think once you see like the flexibility and versatility of it, you'd be like, oh, I totally get it now.
And it's got the cool auto flange when you start on the
auto flange,
mm-hmm.
and I use it for some weird stuff. I use it in kind of a weird way. I put it after my reverbs, and I turn up the wobble like a lot because I like sort of the very seasick kind of 80s VHS kind of degraded sound. So if you're looking to try something a little odd, put it after your delays. It's pretty weird.
I will. I've not tried that before.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
You might not like it, but I think it's pretty cool.
I'll give it a try. I like to use it as a slapback with a ton of saturation, but a lot of dry signal, so it's just kind of there. Like it just adds this character to it that's just really nice on dirty or clean guitars. I think it's pretty cool. But
sweet.
Awesome.
Since we're talking specific products, I would like to ask you guys about your dirt boxes, because not too many people are making DSP based dirt, and I think there's a lot of misinformation, or at least not misinformation, but people don't quite understand what is going on with those. So maybe you guys can talk in a little more detail about those pedals and kind of explain what is actually going on with them.
Well, the one of the things that we wanted to do, we know that you know there's so many things that go into the equation of a good dirt pedal, and sometimes it's hard to quantify, but certainly, you know, if you just talk about feel, I think, you know, most guitar players will have some sort of, you know, nod their head. Yeah, okay, feel. You know what you're talking about, even if it's hard to, you know, go into a detailed description of it. But along those ends, Greg, our analog designer, designed a variable gain JFET, discrete JFET preamp that is at the start of the signal chain of both Sunset and Riverside. And it's a digitally controlled analog gain circuit, so that when you turn the drive knob up, you're actually increasing the analog gain and the signal flow in, you know, as defined in the signal processor. So it's kind of a you could almost think of it as a dual gained pot in a sense. There's the driving stage that's feeding into the DSP, and then the DSP is also adding its gain. But that goes. We found that was an important part of of getting the kind of response and tone that we wanted. And then beyond that, there's I guess a lot of other things that happen in the DSP. If there's any more, like I don't know if you have a specific question, but I mean beyond that, it's we used a technique that we really spent a lot of time on to create just really the widest, most harmonically rich, overdrive that I think if you're not thinking about analog, hopefully, the goal was, and I I personally believe we achieved it was that it's a drive sound that really is not, you're not thinking about digital or anything. It's just it's a it's traditional drive. That the means of achieving it is, we didn't want that to be part of the equation. It's just how we do it so that we can have the control and the flexibility, that we want, so we could really craft the sounds. But we didn't, we weren't interested in trying to make some sort of statement about digital distortion or whatever. It's like, hey, we want to make a good drive pedal. The how we do it is kind of that's behind the scenes. We don't want that to be the focus of what we've done.
Yeah, that makes sense. That it also makes sense in how you guys presented them. I think it was just somewhat of a unavoidable thought process for most people. Like, oh, they make these great digital effects, but very few people make a good digital drive. And I know that's not 100% what it is, but it's a little bit unavoidable when we're talking about a company like Strymon, I suppose.
Yeah, and we realized that it would be, and that's why we, in a sense, we had to, almost, try extra hard because we knew that is going to be something that would be kind of obvious.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons. We've been making pedals under the Strymon name since 2008 or 9. That's why it took us until 2 years ago to come up with a drive pedal, because this is something we've been thinking about for a very long time, and it's not like we can just come out there and not have really thought it through and really thought through, like, okay, how are we gonna make a drive pedal that's just amazing, like, regardless if it's analog or digital.
Right. So now that you've broken the ground on the drive and distortion, is there any plans for like maybe a fuzz? Because that's kind of my thing.
It's possible, I guess I have to maybe just recite the standard, if we tell you we have to kill you, or, we can't give it, essentially it's possible. I think with anything that we do, we just want to make sure that we can bring something new to the table and a different approach, and not just, to be honest, it's not, there's a lot of fuzz pedals out there. So, what can we do that isn't just like every other fuzz pedal? But it's not so different that you're like, oh, what the heck is that? So it's sort of like really looking at fuzzes and trying to come up with what we think is going to be unique. It's possible.
That's a very very political answer.
Yeah, that's why I answered it. Yes. Yeah, leave it to the marketing guy to give a non-answer.
I figured that as much. I know marketing guys. I am one. So let's talk about the Magneto, because that's something that I just looked at and went, you know what? I'm not smart enough for that. So and I feel like a lot of people sort of felt similarly, but maybe if we hear it straight from the horse's mouth, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, we can kind of understand and get our head around it a little bit better, because it looks fascinating but also scary.
The idea behind Magneto is it's a multi-head delay, and that's so the 4 knobs kind of in the center are the levels for each head, and then the buttons underneath them engage feedback. So what you have is you have a delay that has an independent control of the heads, the playback heads, and the feedback heads. And that idea stems from there was a Benson, I forget the model number, 603 maybe, that had these like radio buttons, so you could get any combination of radio buttons for the heads and for the feedback, the playback and the feedback independently. So you end up with actually 256 combinations of settings that way. So, if you think of the Benson that most people think of, it's got the 4 knobs going across the middle, and one of them is the selector knob, where you've got 12 different arrangements of head combinations. Well, if you have independent playback and feedback buttons, instead of 12, you have 256. So that flexibility, was kind of the idea for the start of Magneto, along with I guess the real start of it came from our D-tape algorithm, which was first featured in El Capistan. So we said, okay, we're going to do this for the Eurorack synth market, and Eurorack synth guys, it's all about flexibility, possibilities, features. So we're like, okay, 256. In fact, actually, since we don't have buttons, we actually have knobs for the delays. You could have, it's actually more than 256, but let's just call it 256. But we know the synth guys, we didn't want to limit options for them. So we've got this multi-head delay, but then the top knob is the speed knob, and that actually it works identically to a vari-speed like tape machine. It's got a 8-to-1 range, so it's like a 3-octave range in a sense. If I'm not gonna make anyone's head explode, a factor of 2 is an octave, so a factor of 4 is 2 octaves, and a factor of 8 is 3 octaves. So one of the unique things about Magneto is by changing that speed knob, you're also, in effect, you're changing the pitch of whatever's in the delay. And then it kind of opens up possibilities for Magneto to be an instrument in itself where, of course, this is in the Eurorack world. You've got control voltage, 1 volt per octave. And now Magneto can actually play sequences. You can freeze notes in it and then pitch the notes by changing the speed knob. So it added a whole nother dimension of this beyond being a delay. But at the heart of it is a delay, but it's just kind of a very expanded machine in a sense. And then the bottom row of knobs are the more traditional, like the El Cap users would recognize. There's wow and flutter and tape crinkle and low cut and tape age. And we've got the spring reverb is independent knob. So because it was for the Eurorack market, we're like, okay, yep, features are always appreciated there. Like even what you might think is like, whoa, that's too much, is like, nah, let's try it. So we have those 4 buttons are double duty as transport controls. So there's pause and reverse. There's an infinite hold. A restart. When the deck is paused, you can the speed knob becomes a scrub control. The pause can have mechanical slow down effects. So he's like, and then back up, and then there's a head knob that changes it. We've got a mode called shift where it's almost like if you had a 4-track tape. And each one of the tracks, if you slice the tape like lengthwise along the tape, so each one of those heads can run independent at different speeds. That's what we have there. And it does some interesting things if you've looked at some of our demos where you can get these interesting like double speed playbacks that are like rhythmically and synchronized to the input. And it really just took a life on its own, starting with, let's go with El Capistan and add some more heads. And then it really was, how about this? 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 And, we never said no, and we just kept throwing it in there. So, it was, so it turned out like it did. And it's been well received by the Eurorack community, and we're happy because, that's, we have a lot of fun, with that stuff over here. And, we're hoping to continue.
Yeah,
in that direction as well.
And I think that in general, I've found that most Strymon customers are sonically adventurous, but when it comes to the Eurorack crowd, the people that are making that kind of music, I've seen a lot of more experimental stuff going on in that scene. So, like Pete said, I think a lot of these additional features that kind of make it look a little bit scary are things that people are inviting, are they're inviting those types of features. So yeah.
The Eurorack thing, I've threatened to get into it for a few years now, and I keep restraining myself because I'm already addicted to pedals, and I feel like that would just be even more dangerous somehow with everything those guys going on. But you're right, they do seem to like the the kitchen sink approach to things a little bit more. They want to be able to get, be able to manipulate everything about everything. I've seen a lot of, I mean, like the standard thing when I see a synth guy who is interested in a pedal, they're just like, well, does it have control voltage input? Like,
right.
Sure. Well, we actually a few years ago introduced a prototype at NAMM called Generalissimo, which was sort of the predecessor to Magneto, and we got a lot of good feedback from some Eurorack players, and we learned that it needs a lot more CV control than we had. We rethought a lot of some of the features, and it overall just made it a much better product. And a lot of that was due to the feedback that we received. And this is the reason why it took us. We've been asked to do Eurorack products for a very long time as well, and it's kind of the same thing as the drives. We wanted to just make sure we're entering this new arena with a different type of player, and we just wanted to make sure that we did it right the first time and not. We want to be part of this new community and show that we're actually listening to them and really understand what they want.
Right. That makes sense. So then I take it based on all that you're thinking about more products for that those guys as well for that market.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah, they seem to have. We've gotten I guess an encouraging reception from Magneto that. I guess if everyone was like, "Whoa, this is terrible," or just put our tail between our legs. But no, it's been well received, and we think there's some more cool things that we could bring to it.
Cool. I'll be very excited to see some of that.
Great.
So what does a day look like around the office? I'm sure you guys. It's a lot different for both of you, so I guess you can each take that question and go with it. But whoever wants to start.
Well, mine's probably not as interesting as Pete, so I can go first. A lot of it for me is just we have Angela and Jack here are part of the social media team, so we spend a lot of time in the marketing, like listening to what people are playing, listening to what people are doing, what kind of music they're. Now that I'm talking about that, this is actually pretty damn interesting. So, like there's so many amazing artists that we hear using our gear, and we always love to see how our gear inspires people. So that's like part of my motivation is just making sure that we're, when Pete, Greg, and Dave and all the engineers have a great idea, that I can tell a story about the product that gets people inspired and excited and wanting to make music with it. Because really, at the end of the day, it sounds cheesy, but that's really what we want. We want people to be able to take our gear and be inspired by it and make great music. So when people post clips to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, YouTube, we listen to everything. If you've tagged Strymon or you've hashtagged Strymon, it's been listened to by one of us here. So it's not like it's just going into the ether and nobody's hearing it. We want to hear this stuff, and we spend a lot of time curating lists of stuff that we post to our blog and reposting to Instagram and that kind of thing. So a lot of my day is really looking at the gear that we're working on, crafting stories that get people inspired and excited, and just closing that feedback loop so we can continue to see what our customers are doing with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For me, a typical day, I've got a pretty good gig over here where I'm either playing guitar or checking out gear. I mean, that's what I do, so I play guitar probably 3 hours a day now.
Does that actually improve your guitar playing, Pete?
No, because I play the same thing all over and over. I'm sure much to the chagrin of everyone. Unfortunately, and I don't really work well with headphones. I can't do much critical listening with headphones. It's just kind of like tweaks with me. So I'm playing through amps or or through stereo direct or whatever, but I'm usually making some noise. So the guys in the office have learned to adapt, which is nice. But it's really cool. Like I generally kind of whatever I feel. I mean, I guess most of the Strymon product line are things that I've found interesting to do over the years that they kind of turn into products. And sometimes the products are a little more planned out, like we're going to do with this or that. But a surprising amount of them just kind of come out of the process of just experimenting. And we've got, from that standpoint, we've got a whole bunch of things that haven't been in products yet that maybe could be, but you can't just take an algorithm and just say it's a product. A product has to make sense. So a lot of what I do also kind of becomes like experiments that go into the library of someday this might be useful somewhere. But I'm pretty much playing my guitar and changing numbers and making curves and doing things that that I think hopefully are going to turn into something that sounds good, until you get a consensus that, hey, this actually this is going to go somewhere. And it's kind of the way it's been. I haven't had to be too disciplined so far, which is nice because that's not my strong point. So it's it works well for me, but I'm just always kind of experimenting with sounds and algorithms, and you have to play guitar and try it out to see how you're doing. So it's really those two things are the bulk of my days for the most part. Yeah.
When you're doing that process and kind of just messing about with sound and whatnot, has any of your products been like you kind of like had I wonder if this harebrained idea is going to work, and then it was like, wow, this is way cooler than I thought, and now here it's a thing. Anything in particular strike you that way?
Let's see. Yes, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have any specific examples, but some of the things we do that are just, well, like say the destroyer algorithm on Mobius, if you're familiar with that, or the quadrature algorithm. Those were, a lot of that was just kind of experimenting, and they're based on some mathematical constructs that the quadrature is, but like just kind of putting there's a lot of you have a lot of liberty to make decisions in terms of, well, how am I going to how will I create this stereo field? What do I want to do? Or in the destroyer, hey, let's make some like lo-fi filters, and then you just start kicking around some ideas, and then or the record. So if you're familiar specifically with Mobius, there's a vinyl. What do we call it? Just vinyl? Is that
D-vinyl, or what do we call it? No, it's just vinyl, I think.
It's it's a parameter in the destroyer that will give you like record scratch effects, like pops and cracks, and that turns out no one cares how I do it or whatever, but it's like it's not just a loop. It's not just a like, oh, we recorded some stuff. It's a very fairly sophisticated sequence of random events that are weighted and filtered in such a way that would correspond to the gaps of the discontinuity in the vinyl, and that kind of stuff. And it's an interesting thing. I think it's a polarizing feature because some people seem to really not like it. I'll always remember someone's comment was, I would like this product better if that wasn't in there. But at the same time, it's like, I think, wow, that is really cool. And I probably think it's cooler than anyone else. But that was kind of a thing like, oh, hey, Destroyer, okay, let's have a record, a scratchy record thing. And, I had this one of these old plastic, I don't even know where it came from, like a plastic 45, and put it on a turntable because, it was like really bad because, it's probably been used as a Frisbee or something. And you just get to like listen to it and you just think like, okay, so I want to recreate that, but in a way that's, got some realism to it. And then also there's, in that there's an RPM in a record warp generator, and the scratches also have a tendency to, at once per revolution. But again, it's not the same thing. It's just that the random processes are weighted to say, hey, you're running your record at 78 RPM, so it's once per revolution. There's this area of the record that's scratchier than the others, and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure I've talked longer about this record. In fact, probably this will be the longest ever, but it.
I do remember when you finally came up with that. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. I don't know if you said it was the coolest thing you've ever done, but it was. You were very excited about it.
Yeah, I was more so. Well, and then when you pair that with some of the filters that are also in the Destroyer, that's when you really kind of get, when it kind of really sells it even better. So anyway, that's those algorithms. So I guess to get back to when you're saying other things that are just kind of wacky and, it turns out to be something. Those are the fun ones that are just kind of like, I guess you could say purely creative in a sense. You're not necessarily trying to, capture something that exists, but you're just trying to, just create some sounds that are cool. So those are the ones that I actually probably enjoy the most.
Right, that makes sense. So it is kind of a fun thing to do the whole like people have heard this before, but like almost every night I come out to my music room and I get a bunch of pedals out and I basically try to make new sounds, and just see what I can create. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you kind of do that, except you're doing it with code. Like
that's exactly right. That's a very good analogy. It's just like a blank piece of paper that you can try to see what you can come up with.
What kind of music do you listen to that gets you inspired to create things?
I'm kind of I guess I'd say a little bit older school guy. I've got in my office a poster of Jimi Hendrix' Band of Gypsies, his concert in 1969, and just some of the sounds. He was just such an amazing player. So he's like tied for number one on my list, and the other guy is Jeff Beck, who I've always just thought is so unique, has such a different approach to guitar, and still continues to be an amazing player. So, in my younger days, I used to a lot more actively listen to, I guess, what you call fusion. These days, I listen to it still some, but it's really kind of going back to those, like, Jeff Beck Wired is probably, maybe my favorite album. So, that it's generally guitar oriented music that, I listen to. Something that big Pink Floyd fan as well. Stevie Ray Vaughan. So that's kind of stuff I listen to. I guess, I don't know if that's old man music or not, but
no, it's sort of timeless.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I like what you said. Timeless. I listen to timeless.
Exactly, they're timeless classics.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
especially Floyd.
Yeah,
Pink Floyd.
And you were pretty excited when you heard that Jeff Beck was the Strymon.
Oh yes,
Strymon user. That was a pretty big day.
Yeah. He used it on the tribute to Les Paul tour he did a few years back. He was using El Capistan on that tour, and it was pretty excited when we heard about that. It's like, wow, he's the guy.
Is there anybody else that took you by surprise? I mean, you got a lot of stuff out there in the world. There's probably a lot of well-known artists that are. Well, I know there's a lot of well-known artists that are using your products. Is there anybody else like Jeff Beck that you were just like, whoa, kind of fanboying a little bit?
Well, I know John Mayer uses our stuff.
David Gilmour was using something for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's always hard to tell.
Some of that stuff. It's like, we don't. a lot of people just buy the gear and use it. We don't know. We find out later.
His people contacted us, but we're not quite sure.
Okay.
We like to give everyone their privacy, and
Sure.
So it's like that. We're never like that one. We didn't get any kind of definitive.
Sure. Yeah, and we don't really do artist stuff the way we don't really like traditional arrangements with bands. It's just sort of a lot of times we'll just find out if they're using it.
I was watching. It was the Foo Fighters. They had this series of I think there were 1 hour shows that they were doing where they were recording at kind of landmark studios across the United States.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, in advance. So they were I think they were in Chicago, and so they're in the studio, and I forget what song they're tracking, and they kind of it's just got them they're all kind of hanging out in the studio and got some ideas and they're riffing, and then drummer drawing a blank here.
Dave Grohl?
Dave Grohl, yeah. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, Dave Grohl, the guy. So Dave Grohl,
that guy?
I've never heard of him.
So Dave Grohl, he's talking to the guitar player, Pat Smear, and he says, he's like, oh, yeah, I want to get some sort of freak out sound. And, he just starts kind of going crazy and making some sort of noises. And then the camera points down to Pat's board, and he had a Lex and maybe something else. I had no idea. But I'm watching on my big screen TV, and it's like, oh, bam!
There we are.
A nice high def. Was like, whoa, hey! I had no idea, but that was, kind of nice to see that, just kind of off the cuff. So it's always fun.
I was also pretty excited when Ed O'Brien from Radiohead started using a timeline.
That's right.
That was a pretty big thing for me. OK Computer was one of my all-time favorite albums, and it was super cool to see, him playing live at Santa Barbara Bowl that's where we saw them. To see him using timeline on these songs that I listened to years ago, and actually being able to pick out different algorithms, like, oh, okay, he's using ice delay right now. That was pretty rad.
That had to have been just trippy stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
That's
just
cool.
Knowing that one of my idols was using a product that I had a hand in creating was pretty cool.
That's really awesome. That's got to be some part of the or some of the most rewarding moments of being in this business, I would imagine.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're getting pretty close to that hour mark, and I've got one more question. It's the most important question that I ask guests, but it's part of it's hard to say. It's a little bit controversial sometimes, and some people get really worked up about it, and you've both got to answer it. So it's a little bit of it's you're sitting down, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of pizza do you like?
I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. I'm leaving.
I'm sorry. This can't air then. We just can't air this episode.
I'm going to slam the microphone down on the table.
I got bets. We got bets going on in the Facebook group about it right now.
For me, it's cheese. I just like plain old cheese pizza. What about you?
Cheese pizza.
Yeah. If I had to pick,
Corey, you were right.
And also, I should say I prefer New York style. Chicago style. I'm going to probably piss off a lot of people, but that's not really pizza to me. That's just, to me, my personal opinion. You're right. This is a controversial topic.
Yeah, it is. I know.
It is. It gets heated sometimes.
Lines are going to be drawn here.
Yes.
I do agree with the New York, and I think it's just I grew up in the Boston area, and it wasn't New York pizza, but
yeah.
I guess we had the. I guess everyone is also exposed to the deep dish pizza. Deep dish pizza is awesome, but I agree. It's almost like that becomes like a meal. It's like.
It's its own thing.
Sort of. I like it, but to me, it's a different experience to what I normally think of as pizza.
Yeah. So if I had to go with one ingredient on the pizza, this might be weird.
Oh,
it's mushrooms. I just love a mushroom pizza.
Yeah, I do love mushrooms. I really do.
Yeah.
That's not weird.
Okay, good.
I have a question for you, because this is a topic that we've come across a couple times here at the Strymon offices. Twizzlers or red vines?
This is a big
Twizzlers
one.
or Red Vines? Oh, I see. So this is a hard one for me.
Yeah.
Because, and a lot of people, might be controversial too.
Definitely.
I don't really like. I'm not a big candy guy.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
I'm a savory guy. I like meats and things. So like if you ask me if I want dessert, I'm gonna like, can I have another cheeseburger, please?
Right.
But in the battle between Red Vines and Twizzlers, Red Vines win for nostalgia purposes. But if I'm at a movie, I'd rather have Twizzlers.
Interesting. Good answer.
Yeah.
I think was our office pretty well split, or
It was pretty well split.
I was a Twizzler. I'm a Twizzler
Yeah,
guy.
I don't know. Did
It
Red
upset a lot
Vines?
of people.
Did Red Vines was that more of a West Coast thing? I'm not sure because
I don't know.
both Pete and I grew up in Massachusetts, so yeah. And if you chose Red Vines, I mean that's wrong, but we can still be friends.
Okay, good.
Yep.
No, but honestly, the real answer is, I don't know, an IPA. I think
there you go.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think we can all agree with that.
Yes. Actually, I'm drinking
Something
one right
we
now.
can all agree on, right?
That's right.
You guys, let's see. You guys have been both. You grew up on the East Coast, but you're here on the West Coast. I'm in Portland. So I'm
Okay.
also a West Coaster. A little different kind of West Coaster, but but I've been spending more and more time on the East Coast, and I've found that, like, I don't know, at least in my opinion, I thought New York pizza was just mind blowing. I had one of the best pizzas ever that I've ever ate there, and I still think about it probably daily. But I gotta say, at least in Portland, we have a few spots that it's like I can scratch that itch if I need to.
Right.
But some people say it's impossible. What about down there in California?
Mulberry Street Pizza is the closest I've come. There's a few locations down here. There's one in Encino, I think one in Beverly Hills. That's the closest I've come to New York style pizza in LA. Because there's a lot of terrible pizza. There's a lot of good pizza here, but there's a lot of terrible pizza in Los Angeles.
Well, there's one place right near, fairly close to our office, Diamore's.
Yeah.
But they are actually Boston style pizza,
Sure.
and they say that they actually use somehow that they get Boston water, whatever that is, shipped in and to make their crust, to make their dough with, so that that it's actually authentic. Well, and I do really like it. It is very thin crust.
It is good
and tasty pizza. So I'd say, what I miss from here, even though it's not Philadelphia, but in Massachusetts, we had some really good places to get steak subs. We didn't call them Philly cheesesteaks.
I believe they were called grinders.
They were, specifically where I went to, the menu item was called a steak bomb, and, and I have not been able to find any equivalent out here to take care of the steak bomb itch. So.
Steak bomb, that sounds phenomenal. What's all on that thing?
That's the way it makes you feel too after you eat it. You're like, oh.
Well, yeah, because it's like the shredded steak that's grilled up, and then they put pepperoni in. So you get the bun with the little what is that, cornmeal or something?
Oh yeah.
And then so you put the steak in, the cheese on the sides, get the steak in. Then there's slices of pepperoni that are put down the middle, and then cheese in that. Or maybe even pastrami cheese. But anyway, so it's all those things. And then you throw some green peppers and mushrooms in there as well. And it's really, really tasty.
Steak bomb.
Yeah, steak bomb.
Oh, man, that sounds so good right now. I'm so hungry. Oh, doing this podcast always makes me hungry. Oh, man, so good. Well, all right, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come on. We're kind of right there at that hour mark, and
thanks for having us.
Sure, absolutely.
Man, it was a real treat. I enjoyed it, and it was nice to get some insight. There's a lot of speculation sometimes, and it's nice to hear it kind of straight from the horse's mouth type situation.
Sure.
So
Sweet,
very good.
cool.
But if there's anything else, this is your chance to throw up a billboard. Where can people find you? What do you want to say? You want to tell your mom you love her? Whatever it is, this is your guys' opportunity.
I'm looking at the marketing guys.
Well, I guess I would just want to reiterate a little bit what I said earlier about, we do listen to everybody that uses our gear and posts it online. We listen to that, and we always enjoy hearing that kind of stuff. So keep doing it. That's all I gotta say. And hi, Mom. I
All
guess.
right.
Yeah.
My
Thanks for the support. And
Yeah, for sure.
And hi, Mom.
Yeah. And my mom does listen, so hi, Mom. All right, everybody. Well, for Ethan and Pete, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. It's kind of a funny thing with this podcast. There's a sort of a reoccurring theme that has happened almost with every company I talk to. When I got contacted by Strymon for the interview, I thought, oh yeah, this is kind of a bigger operation. There's going to be, a lot more layers to it and a lot more sort of red tape in the corporate sense. And no matter what, it seems like, without fail almost, that everything is much smaller than it seems. Outside looking in, some of these corporations and companies can feel like these big entities and these big, almost overwhelming conglomerate type things. And it's not that at all. Almost 100% of the time, it's much smaller. Some of them are large, but it's not as large as what you think. It's not what you think maybe coming from another sort of technology company, like a computer corporation or IBM or something. Like everyone knows it's smaller, but I don't think everyone knows how much smaller and more condensed these things are. And talking to Strymon, it was very clear that this is no exception. They're doing great. They're doing amazing things in the industry. They have a lot of technology behind them and a lot of ideas, but they are still gear nerds like the rest of us, which is nice to know because we want to, support the community, support our kind, and it's a good thing that, fortunately, most everybody's chill, which is the best part of it all. So, could you do the most chill thing possible and just tell a friend about this podcast? If you could share this with just one person, that would be fantastic. If you could share it on Facebook, you could share it wherever you think people might be interested. That is phenomenal, and that helps so much. But if you could sit down with your best gear buddy and just be like, yo, dude, we got this podcast over here, and this guy is super annoying, but he talks to a lot of interesting people, and share it with that guy. At least at the bare minimum, you've ruined his day just as much as your day has been ruined right now. And best case scenario, you've helped this show continue on and get a new listener. And hopefully, we can keep doing this for forever. Hopefully, that's the goal. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you feel like it, I haven't asked for an iTunes review in a while. iTunes is still, despite the player functionality not greatness, they're still the big dogs in the game as far as podcast goes, and a review helps a lot. So if you could leave an iTunes review, I'd really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week. Got really fun episodes coming up. Might even be acoustic guitars involved soon. I'm not promising anything though. Bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.